In this video, I go over the cost of plane ownership, specifically with a Piper PA-18-150 or Super Cub, and I also provide some recommendations on buying a plane. Hi, Mark Donovan here from Falcon Imagery, and I wanted to talk today in regards to the cost of owning your own plane, the real breakdown costs, both the fixed costs and the variable costs. And I'm going to do it relative to my aircraft, which is a Piper Super Cub, a PA-18, which is a rag and tube aircraft. These prices and costs will vary from region around the country. They also vary the type of aircraft. Again, since mine is a rag and tube aircraft, there can be some additional costs that we'll discuss here. But first of all, we'll go over the fixed costs per year. And these are my actual costs that I've been incurring over the past few years as it relates to basic maintenance, not for any significant enhancements like putting in a whole new set of avionics. So anyways, we look at the fixed costs here. We first of all have the hangar costs. I pay $345 a month for that hangar. And it's a very basic hangar, and it's quite a bit of a distance away from the runway, probably about a half a mile for me to taxi. And it's an unheated hangar, but it does the job. It protects the plane from the weather, not the cold, but the weather. And so I pay $345 a month for that. And if I had a completely aluminum plane or steel plane like a Cessna 172, 152, I might entertain the thought of keeping it tied down part of the year. But since I live in a northern cold climate and it's a rag and tube aircraft, I don't want the fabric to be except getting too much of the ultraviolet light. So anyways, that's why I keep my plane hangared, and I would highly recommend that for anybody that has a fabric aircraft. In regards to insurance, I pay just under $1,600 for my insurance, which works out for $133 per month. Again, this is based on my personal flight experience and the hull value of the aircraft. My background is I have about 900 and some plus hours of flight time, and I'm a CFI, CFII with commercial seaplane and land and multi-engine ratings. So that may be why my insurance at $1,600 is relatively reasonable. I'm also not putting it on floats. I'm not putting it on skis either, just on wheels. So that insurance cost can vary a lot depending your configuration, your experience, etc. But my cost is $1,600 a year. The basic annual is about $1,200. This is for labor and parts for like the oil change and just the basic things that need to be done for the annual. There's some additional unexpected annual costs that typically come up. I've had a couple of times where I've needed to do a fabric patch or repair, small fabric patch or repair, or replace a single piece of avionics like an altimeter or something. And there's been a few mechanical issues with flaps or something over the years. So those typically run me each year about an extra $1,500. So I'm looking roughly about $2,700 a year for my typical annual based on the very basic annual plus putting in some fixes that were kind of unexpected. I also budget for an airplane reserve for things like new avionics I may want to add, new wheels. I put some 8.5s in back a couple years ago. I put a different seatbelt configuration in. I'm about ready to put an JPI EDM 730 in. Again, I average about $1,500 a year, whether it be for the wheels or for the avionics piece that I wanted, etc. And then lastly, state registration for my state, New Hampshire, it's $100 every year. So you can see what the annual costs are, about $10,040. And my monthly costs average $837. And these are fixed costs. Now we have our variable costs here. I estimate I burn about 7 gallons per hour on average. Right now I'm paying $5.23 per gallon for avgas. It's gone up probably about 40 to 50% in the past 8 or 9 months. so it's gone up a lot. So I'm spending about $36, $37 an hour in fuel burn. In regards to oil burn, I put in about a quart about every 20 hours, I would say, and it's costing me about $12 a quart right now. That's again gone up way up as well. And then I put in a reserve of $12.50 per hour. This is assuming a 2K hour tack time, or roughly 2.6K hours of hobs. I think I use about 1.3 hob hours per tack time is what I'm estimating. And basically I'm factoring about 25K to replace the engine. So when you factor in all those variable costs, it's costing me roughly $49.71 an hour to operate. If I used, for example, here in yellow, if you just plug in the number of 40 for 40 hours, how many hours I fly a year in that aircraft, let's say 40, my fixed costs work out to $251. My variable costs worked out to $50. And so my cost per hour is $301, with a total cost of about $12,000 a year. If I up that to about 100 hours per year, you can see the cost gets to about $150 an hour, which is pretty much on par with what it would cost me to rent a Cessna 172 in the area that I live, in New Hampshire. Maybe get it for a little bit less, 140, 150. Now, the cost of trying to rent a PA-18-150 or a Super Cub, I say priceless. Pretty much I can't find anywhere that offers, in the lower 48 or up in Alaska, allows the ability to rent a PA-18 and fly it by yourself. It's just pretty much impossible because the insurance is just so outrageous to do something like that. So that's why I say it's priceless. You almost can't rent a plane of this type on your own. So the best thing you're going to do if you want to fly a Super Cub is to own one. And at 100 hours a year, $150 a year for cost, that's not too far off par from what I would spend if I was renting like a Cessna 172. If we look over a generic Super Cub costs, the pricing is a little bit different here. So if I just factor in the hangar, I think I get a pretty inexpensive hangar rate. You could pay on average $400, $500. I'm going to use $400 here for a basic average hangar rental. The insurance, I left that the same, $1,600. You really need to put in what your case is. And a basic annual, again, I haven't changed that. I didn't put anything in for any unexpected annual costs because really that is particular to your situation. Also, the airplane reserve, any enhancements you want to make, again, that's your prerogative. But if I wanted to keep my costs to a minimum, my fixed costs would be about $7,700 a year. Nothing really I can do here on the variable costs. They are what they are per hour. So if I go back and put in the 40 hours, I'm looking about $242 an hour to fly, and about just under $10,000 a year to own the plane. Again, if I'm flying 100 hours a year, it's about $127 cost per year, with a total cost of about $12,671. So, that's what it basically costs to own a fabric plane such as a Piper Super Cub. I did not put a reserve in for refabricating the plane. The fabric on it today, if you get a new fabric, it can last you 40 years or so from what I read. And as a result of that, it's hard to really factor in on a per hour basis wear and tear on the fabric. Again, if you keep the plane hangared and clean, keep it out from the ultraviolet lights, that fabric should last many decades. So in my case, I'm not factoring in refabricating the plane. If I was, I'd factor in somewhere around 40 to 50K to refabricate the plane. That's what I'm hearing nowadays from a couple guys I talk to that do fabric work. Well, anyways, those are my costs estimates for my actual costs and my cost estimates if I wanted to strip it down a little bit. Hopefully, this provides some idea to you on what you might anticipate expending in annual costs per year if you were to buy your own plane. I will reiterate that if you have a fabric plane, leaving it outside is a terrible thing to do. You really should start factoring in a reserve for refabricating the plane if you do that. Before I end this video, I wanted to briefly talk about recommendations on buying a plane, or my personal recommendations. People may have other opinions, and I'm more than interested to see those comments and opinions in the comment section of this video, so feel free to add them. But my personal recommendations are the following. Number one, always get a pre-buy inspection on the plane that you're considering to purchase. Use a mechanic you trust to do the pre-buy inspection. If the plane is located far from you, do not use a mechanic recommended by the owner or broker of the aircraft. Find an independent mechanic from a nearby airport that has no relationship with the owner or broker of that plane. Lastly, choose a mechanic familiar with the type of plane you're looking at. If you're buying, for example, a fabric plane, make sure the mechanic has lots of experience maintaining fabric aircraft. And particularly, if you're buying, let's say, a Super Cub, he has experience maintaining and doing annuals on inspections on Super Cubs. Number two, if the pre-buy inspection goes well, then go see the plane in person. This way you won't have any surprises after signing papers on the plane. Even if you're not going to ferry the plane back yourself, assuming you went forward and purchased it, you can go along for the ride now with the ferry pilot if you so choose. Worst case scenario, you choose not to buy the plane because you see something you don't like with it. A lot better to spend a few $100s on the cost of an airline ticket rather than spend tens of thousands of dollars on repairs that you hadn't budgeted or planned for. Number three, request a fresh annual with the purchase of the plane. Though you get what you pay for with this, if it's not costing you anything, you may end up with just a legal annual, but it may be cursory. You might want to also consider tying in the pre-buy inspection with the fresh annual if the owner agrees to it. You're paying your mechanic anyways to do the pre-buy, so why not have them do the annual as a possibility. It may cost you more money. I'm sure it'll cost you more money. However, there'll be more likely to, any issues with the plane to be uncovered during that annual. And then any of these issues that are uncovered, you can negotiate with the owner on fixing those repairs or lowering the sale price of the aircraft. Lastly, get a title search on the plane. Make sure that the rightful owner is selling you the plane and that there are no liens on the plane, such as outstanding maintenance fees or tie down or hangar fees. Anyways, those are my recommendations on buying a plane. If you have your own opinions or thoughts, would love to see the comments in the comment section of this video below. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to be notified when I come out with my next video.